Hello everyone, welcome back. So let's make a sheath for this most awesome railroad spike knife that Eddie over at Backyard Custom Knives made. I'm going to put a link in the description of him forging this knife. I just love this. Brother, this thing is just awesome. This is going to be my dedicated fatwood knife. You might have saw my mail call video, and I just love, as he was making this, I was drooling. And he's holding it in his hand and he says, this would make a good fatwood knife. I believe I mentioned that in the other video. And just before it came out of his mouth, it was coming out of my mouth. That would make a great fatwood knife. Because of the way he designed it, and you hold it here, and obviously the end of the spike, or the top of the spike, just kind of locks your hand in, and that curve, your thumb fits right there, and I'm not going to be banging my knuckles when I'm cutting fatwood. So I want a sheath. This is not going to be carried on my belt. It's not going to be a belt sheath. I just want something to cover this hair popping edge he put on it to protect the edge and protect me. So I was thinking about making something similar to what you would put on an axe with a snap, but I think this is too small for that. I think it would look disproportionate. So I'm going to make one where it slides in, and I think have like a piece of leather lace to hold it on. So I always start out when I make my sheets with a piece of cardboard. Excuse the noise, we got some landscaping going on. And I'm going to be using my Backyard Custom Knives pen. Alright, so what we want is, we're going to fold this in half first. We got our kind breakfast bar cardboard here. And we're going to put this in here. I'm going to leave a little extra up here because I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do. Then we want to leave enough room. It's so noisy here. Leave enough room for a welt. So we're going to have something like that. I might move it in like that. Noise pollution. This world is full of noise pollution! Dagnabbit, as Bones would say. Alright. So we got that. Then what I do is I'll fold this back this way. Let me grab a scissor. Alright, got my scissor. So we have that. Now remember, when you make a cardboard template, to be generous, because the cardboard obviously is way thinner than the leather. So when you fold, if you made this like very, very close to what you expected it to be finished, and then you folded the leather over, you're not going to have enough. Alright, that's cool. So what I want now is probably about right there. A lot of this goes on in my head. So something like that. we'll round this off. Okay. So then the knife would slip in there. And then the leather lace would go here and stop it from coming out. I like it. Again, just a simple sheath to protect the blade, the edge, and my fingers. All right, so now we'll get a piece of leather. And I'm so unprepared here. Let me grab the leather and I'll be right back. All right, so we have a piece of veg tan leather. That'll work out great right there. Gives me extra room on both sides. So what I'll do is I'll cut this here. And as you can see, I'm leaving a ton of room. Because that's that old, what's that old saying? Measure twice, cut once. Well, with leather, leave extra or you may need another piece of leather. All right, so I'll just trim that out and I'll bring you back. All right, so I have it trimmed out. I figured I'd show you these. I bought these in Harbor Freight. I showed them in a couple videos here or there, but if you're new into leather and stuff, I do a lot of trimming and with leather with a razor blade. So do a ton of other people, and they have specialized knives for cutting leather and everything. But I just use a razor blade. But I also have this, and I picked this up at Harbor Freight. It was very, very inexpensive, and I've had this for quite a few years. And I use this for the rough out, the trimming, because it's so easy. I just want to show you. I mean, this cuts through leather like it's nothing. And you can get, you know, your rough work done, cutting out things. And I mean, look at that. It works really, really well. And it works all the way up to the tip, too. See that? Definitely worth it if you have a Harbor Freight near you. You know what? I don't remember what they're called. Some kind of maybe universal scissors or something. I don't think they were called leather snips, but they are outrageous. They are worth the money. Very well made, spring loaded. These things are awesome. All right, back to the project. So we have this cut out. Now, as you can see, it's way bigger than the pattern, okay? But that's what we want. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to wet this. Not the whole piece, just here, okay? Because this is some pretty thick stuff. And I kind of want to get it a little bit flatter. Right down there. I can see right there. I'm going to have to trim that. Dang noise pollution. See now, until I wet that, I'm gonna have a big, sort of like a tunnel there, but I'll bring you to that step in a moment. Oh, I made a rookie mistake. I made a rookie mistake. I cut the pattern backwards. Look at that. I wanted this on this side, like this. Or did I? Yeah, I did. No, I didn't. Man, my brain's not working. That noise pollution's killing me. I've done that in the past, though, I'll tell you that much. I mean, it wouldn't have been the end of the world, it just would have been opposite. But, so this is good. This is looking good. So you're seeing how that's going to work. And I have plenty of leather to play with. Excellent. Most excellent. Definitely digging it. Alright, so what I'm going to do is, now that I have this on here, I'm just going to wet this, and I'll bring you back, just right down here. Alright, so I have it wet. Now, what you want to do is, if you're working with anything that's got carbon steel in it, and you're working around wet leather, or wet forming anything, you want to get some stretch wrap. Protect the blade. You could also put oil on it first, coat it with oil nice, and then wrap it in the saran wrap or stretch wrap, whatever you want to call it. Now, you see why I left so much extra on the outside? I'm going to pull this up a little bit more. That gives me plenty of room. Put a welt in. Alright, I'm going to flip this over this way to see where I have it. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to trim this to basically my final length. Yes, I'm using a pen. Pen writes great on leather. And I'm going to cut right to that line so you're not going to see it. And again, this is how I do it. Alright? So we got that. You may even see the edge of the blade is right here. Whoop. Yeah, I think that's good. Alright, so now I'll trim that off. I can even use this. This is the inside. And then when I fold this over, as you can see, it's starting to look like a sheath already, right? All right. That's going to work out great. Okay, so now at this point, I'm going to want to dye it. I'm going to trim this up a little bit more here. Just cut these corners off, make it a little rounder. And I'm going to dye it. I like to dye it before I put any kind of contact cement or glue on it. Just in case, sometimes, you know, if the glue is where you don't want it, then the dye doesn't kind of penetrate well there. So I'm going to bring you back when this is dyed, and then we'll take this to the next step. All right, so it's dyed. I moved over to my bench. Hopefully the lighting is good. I know I got some shadows going on, but it's all dyed up. I forgot to mention, if you're going to bevel and burnish this part here, you need to do that before you glue it. Believe me, I know. Because then you won't be able to get in the inside. The tool won't fit in there. All right, so now we have our basic sheath here. Now the next thing we're going to want to do is make a welt. Okay, and the welt is there to protect the threads from the edge. All right, so what I did was I have a little template, cardboard template, of the blade profile, and just a piece of scrap leather. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to place this scrap leather inside here. Now you want to make sure you come down to the edge, and then take this, slip it in there, make sure everything's lined up. Hopefully you see that. And then I'm just going to trace out this outline. And you have some flexibility once you cut the welt. So that should match this. There you have it. All right, let me just cut that out. I'll use my snip. Okay. I'll be right back. So now we have that profile cut out. That should fit fine. Now, one thing I want to mention, when you're making the welt, make sure you make it wide enough that when you stitch, the stitches go through the welt and the two pieces of leather. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stick this in here temporarily. I'm just going to put I like to leave it a little proud, so that when I sand everything, I'm just making couple little dots just to make sure. Yes, I have plenty there. All right, so I'll just trim this quick. All right, so that's the beginning of the welt. Okay, so now we're going to want to put a little slight bevel on the edge of this, basically like a 45. I could probably use the knife itself to do that. Oh yeah, it's sharp. Just a little bevel on there so that when it fits into here, you get a nice tight fit. All right, we'll make sure one last time that we're good to go. I'm so off camera here, aren't I? That's because I'm working off to the side here. All right. So that's what we're going to have. All right, so the next thing you're going to do is you're going to use your whatever type of glue you like to use. I use contact cement, just regular old contact cement. I think it's 3M. They sell special glues and whatnot, but you know, use whatever you got. So I'm going to glue that in. First, I'm going to dye it. Again, like I said, I like to dye everything first. Then I'm going to glue this in, and I'll bring you back when that's done. All right, so I have the welt glued in. Hopefully that's showing up. I probably should have waited to do this on the other table, but so now I'm just going to trim off this excess here. Now I'll take this over to my sander and I'll sand this flush. I won't bore you watching me sand it, and I'll bring you back when that's done. All right, so I have it all sanded down. Fits nice. I'm hoping this footage comes out good. So next thing I'm going to do is, and I'm going to show you on this little sample piece here, because my 60-year-old eyes like to be up close and personal when I'm doing this. And if I do it on camera, I'll show you what happens sometimes. So I have these little tools I made. You don't need these. You can use dividers. But they give me my spacing for where I want to put my stitches. I have a couple different sizes. Hopefully that shows up. So these are for the edges, and you want to make sure you're about in the middle of the welt. Or at least not on the other side of the welt. This one will be fine. So what I would do is, I would take this, and it's just acting like a divider. Hopefully that shows up. You see, it makes a line. I'll try to follow this pen in that line. Okay, so that gives me my line. Then I'll take whichever spacing I want, and I'll make some little tick marks by rolling this around. Now they sell a tool that you could roll and make the marks. Again, they pretty much make tools for everything. This is just what I use. I don't do a ton of leather work, so I really, haven't seen a need to invest in all of that. And then I use this, just a little punch I modified to make my holes. And again, they have chisels with, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 holes at one time. But I just use this. And I put it on here. And I punch a hole. And again, you can see I went off of that line there. And you have to make sure you're perpendicular. Because if you're off, if you punch the hole like this, at like an angle, it'll look straight on the front, but when you turn it on the back, it'll be all zigzaggy. So that's why I'll do that off camera where I could, get my eyes up close and personal. But I'll do that, put my whole stitch line right in here. And I'll bring you back when I have all my holes. All right, so I got all my holes done. I'm happy with that, pretty straight. I didn't miss any. And then I realized I did not use my groover that a most awesome anonymous friend sent me. So I'm gonna have to make sure I remember I have this and use it on the next project. Also, I like to just mention that, the methods that I use, are just from me watching other people do things. Um, and I would advise, if you're thinking about getting into leather work, it's not hard, um, but you just kind of need to know certain techniques. And by watching a bunch of different people, you'll pick up what works for you, and then you'll get your own style. Probably not everybody would do it this way. Maybe some people would, but it's my way. So I just wanted to mention that. And if you want to see someone, that does it professionally, as far as I'm concerned, go check out Mr. Tolly. I did a shout out for him a while back, but that's the channel name. And he makes some awesome projects. He's doing all kinds of leather work, and he's got a lot of the correct tools. If you could afford to buy the tools, he'll show you which ones to use and how to take care of them. So this is just a quick shout out for my brother, Mr. Tolly. So now I'm going to do a saddle stitch, and this is just a 2-ply thread, black thread. And it is 4 times the length of this stitch line. Okay, that's the bare minimum I would use. Preferably, I would use 5 or 6 times, because I like to have the extra, because there's nothing worse than getting to the last couple stitches and not having enough thread. Been there, done that, didn't like it. But I happen to have this piece already cut, and I was running low on this black thread, so I just grabbed it, and hopefully it'll work out. So I'm going to start up here at the top. Oh, I forgot pliers. Be right back. Okay. Now, this also is a choice, if you want to make a stitch going over the top or not. Now what you do is, at least what I do is, I'll pull this thread a little bit this way, and I'll put the second needle in on top of that, because you want to try not to go through the thread. That'll weaken it. Haha, did you see that? I did the wrong stitch. Pulled it right out. Okay. Oh, let's do that again. It's funny, when you're sitting there without the camera going, everything goes smoothly. Okay, so we're pulling that one up, and this one goes through. And just snug it up. Don't go crazy, because if you go crazy pulling that, you'll cut your fingers, and you will actually embed it into the leather. I mean, you could if that's what you want to do. So we come through. And there you go. So I'll speed this up. Alright, I got dangerously close to running out of thread there. You know what? My instinct said that's going to be too short. Because like I said, I always like to leave a little bit extra. But we made it. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to back stitch. I normally do that at least twice. Alright, let me grab my snips because I'm woefully unprepared. Alright, I have my snips. You want to leave just a little bit of a nub. Get yourself a lighter. Press that down. Okay, so we got all the stitching done. Let's clear that out of the way. Just get yourself a little piece of wood or something that you can lay this on and hang it off. Like this edge here is going to be thicker where it's folded most of the time. Just hang it off the end there, and I use a nylon mallet. Tap those threads down. Now if you have that groove, I'm assuming you don't have to do that. Do this, or maybe you do, and set them into the groove. And again, this is not going to be, worn on a belt, so I don't need to worry about it. Yes, I'm liking that. All right, so the next step is I'm going to clear this off, and I'll be back and we'll do the beveling on the outside. Right. So now we're going to bevel it. Simple as that. Pulls this off. Okay. Now I'll do that all the way around here. We already did this. Remember how I was telling you? You'd be able to do the front if you didn't, but you would never be able to do the inside. So after it's all beveled, I'll put another coat of dye on this outside here, and I'll bring you back when that's done. So the dye has dried. It's looking nice. Now the next step that I do is I use this Lexol leather conditioner. That is all different kinds of conditioners that they sell, but this is what I use. And a lot of this stuff is no good. A little tiny bit goes a very, very, very long way. So I'm just going to put, well, let me turn it on first. Hello, Lexol, come out. Okay. Again, we don't want a lot. Just rub it in. I like to just wipe off the excess. And we're going to let that dry. Alright, now, burnishing time. Now here's a burnishing tool. I made this. They sell them. I've used a butter knife. I've used a pencil. I've used a screwdriver. Sometimes whenever I have handy, I'll just pick it up and I'll start burnishing. So basically what it does is it slicks the edge, makes it nice and smooth. Okay, so now we're going to get a little water. A little cup over here. Just moisten that. Now this one doesn't happen to fit in here, so I'll just use this end. And just start rubbing it. And you'll see with very few rubs, it already starts to get a glossy shine on it. See that? Now I made a machine to burnish, which if I remember, I'll put a link in the description. But you don't need a machine, obviously. You could do it all by hand. Just keep rubbing, rubbing, rubbing. If you ask me, the burnishing really takes it to the next level. If you bought a piece of leather products that are, let's say, cheaply made, they hardly never have burnishing done. It kind of takes it to the next level. All right, so I'll continue burnishing this, and then I'll show you the next step, and we'll be done. All right, all the burnishing is done. Came out nice. And then I use Johnson's Paste Wax. I used to use a neutral kiwi shoe polish for my final coat. And then I don't know who I was watching, somebody on YouTube, or maybe I read about it. I really don't remember, but they were like, Johnson's Paste Wax. It actually says on here for leather and plastics. And I've had this for I don't even know how many years. This stuff goes a long, long way. And I started using this and I love it. So just take a little bit. Again, don't go crazy with wax and Lexol. Just rub it in and you'll see it take it to the next level. The heat of your fingers will work it into the leather. See, it's soaked in there. And I like to just massage it in. Again, the heat of your fingers will kind of just get that in there. Okay, so we're going to let that dry. Let's see how long it actually says on the can. Bada bada bop, bada bada bop. Apply a thin coat, working with the grain. Allow to dry to a haze. Then buff with a soft cloth. All right. We'll see if it needs another coat, but we'll let that dry up, and I'll be back. All right. Looks a little hazy to me. So I just have a piece of undershirt here. And we'll just start buffing it out. Nice. Nice, Captain. Look at that burnish. Now, you could put more coats on. Again, you know, this is just a simple little sheath for the awesome knife that Eddie from Backyard Custom Knives made me, or made and bartered with me for. But the same techniques be used for any knife. Check it out. Now, let's see how she fits. Nice. Now, I was going to put a lace around here, but let me tell you, I mean, look at this. I'm whipping that, and that's not coming out. So we're going to call this good. Fits nice. Protects the blade. Protects my hand. Sometimes after I put the wax on, I'll give it an extra little burnish. Hopefully that shows up. It's really shining. And this is why I dye everything before I do it. So sometimes, you know, when I first started doing leather work, I didn't dye it until after. And I would see like a very fine line where the glue was, and it didn't take the dye afterwards. Now, I know this was a long video. Thank you for sticking with it. But, you know, even though it's a tiny little sheath, it takes quite a bit of time. I mean, there's a lot of steps. It's not hard, but there's a lot of steps involved. So there you have it. The BCK Custom Railroad Spike Knife has a nice little leather sheath to protect the blade edge and to protect my fingers. So again, Eddie, thank you so much, brother. I absolutely love this. I want to thank you all for coming along and watching. Hopefully it inspires you to grab some leather and make something like this. And again, when you make it yourself, especially for something that's custom, it fits exactly the way you want it to fit. You can't go to a store and buy something like this. You can have someone make it for you, but you know, you can't go to the store, you can't go online to buy something like this. So it's a good thing to know how to do. So again, Eddie, thank you so much, brother. I really, really appreciate it. Much love to you, my brother. And much love to all of you, my brothers and sisters, for coming along for another one and watching. I really, really appreciate it. I hope you all are having a wonderful day. I hope you all are staying safe out there, and we'll see you on the next one.